Beneath the vast, unending tapestry of the cosmos, where the night sky's darkness is punctuated by the cold, silent glow of ancient stars, the moon hangs in perpetual watch, a sentinel, scarred and silent, orbiting Earth in a dance older than civilization itself. For millennia, humanity has gazed upward, threading stories of gods and monsters and destinies written in the dust of that pale orb. Yet in the 21st century, the moon is no longer merely a canvas for dreams. It has become a frontier, one where ambition, curiosity, and the ceaseless search for power converge. And now, as the United States prepares to place nuclear reactors on the lunar surface, a new chapter in the tangled narrative of humanity and its closest celestial neighbor is being written, one atom at a time. It begins not with a single step, but with a vision, an audacious blueprint drawn in the glow of computer screens and the ink of policy documents, echoing the fevered spirit of the Apollo era. The year is 2024, and a consortium of engineers, scientists, and policymakers gathers beneath the sterile light of conference halls in Washington, D.C., Houston, and Los Alamos. Their mission is clear: to deliver a reliable, resilient energy source capable of powering the next age of lunar exploration, a world where sunlight is both a gift and a curse, where the frigid night can last for 2 weeks, and where every watt of electricity is as precious as water or air. The challenge is formidable. The lunar surface is a landscape of extremes. Temperatures swing from a blistering 127 degrees Celsius under the relentless glare of the sun, down to a bone-cracking minus 173 degrees Celsius when darkness falls. Solar panels, lifeblood for the International Space Station and countless robotic explorers, struggle to endure such cycles. Batteries, even the most advanced lithium-ion arrays, cannot store enough energy to sustain a base through the endless vacuum of lunar night. Here, survival demands something more potent, more enduring, a source of energy that does not fade with the setting sun. Enter nuclear fission, a process as old as the stars, harnessed by humanity less than a century ago, promising power measured not in fleeting hours, but in years. The concept is not new. In the shadow of the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union both dreamed of atom-powered outposts on the Moon or Mars, but technology then was heavy, unwieldy, and shrouded in secrecy. Now, advances in materials science, miniaturization, and safety protocols have transformed the nuclear reactor from a symbol of terrestrial might into a tool for interplanetary survival. At the heart of this new lunar vision is NASA's Fission Surface Power project, a program born from the agency's Artemis initiative, the effort to return humans to the moon and this time, to stay. In 2022, NASA, in partnership with the Department of Energy, DOE, and Idaho National Laboratory, awarded contracts to 3 industrial giants, Westinghouse, Lockheed Martin, and IX, a collaboration between Intuitive Machines and X-Energy. Each team was tasked with designing a 40-kilowatt-class fission reactor, capable of operating on the lunar surface for at least a decade. The details of these designs are a symphony of engineering ingenuity. Imagine a reactor, smaller than a compact car, sheathed in layers of radiation shielding and thermal insulation. Its core pulses with the slow, controlled splitting of uranium atoms, releasing heat that drives Stirling engines or thermoelectric converters, technologies chosen for their reliability and simplicity in the harsh lunar environment. Waste heat is shed into space via radiators, unfurling like metallic wings against the blackness. The entire assembly must be rugged enough to survive the violence of rocket launch, the shock of lunar landing, and the abrasive bite of regolith dust. Yet, beyond the technical challenges lies an even deeper set of questions, ones that reach into the marrow of civilization. There is the specter of safety, how to guarantee, beyond all doubt, that a reactor will not crack open in a launch failure, scattering radioactive material across the Earth or Moon. There are the politics of power. Who controls the atom on the Moon, and for what purposes? And there is the perennial anxiety of progress, whether the tools we create to secure our future might, in some unforeseen circumstance, endanger it instead. To understand the significance of this moment, one must trace the winding path that led here. The story of nuclear power in space is as old as the space age itself. In 1965, the United States launched SNAP-10A, the world's first and so far only operational nuclear reactor in Earth orbit. SNAP-10A was a marvel in miniature, producing just 500 watts of electricity, enough to power a few small instruments. Its mission ended prematurely due to a voltage regulator failure, but the proof of concept lingered in the minds of engineers and dreamers. The Soviet Union too ventured into the atom-powered void. Between 1970 and 1988, Soviet engineers launched more than 30 satellites equipped with BES-5 and Topaz reactors, providing kilowatts of electricity for radar and communications. Some of these reactors, such as those aboard the Cosmos series, became infamous for their fiery re-entries, scattering radioactive debris across the Canadian tundra and the South Atlantic. These incidents and the political fallout they triggered shaped the global consensus on nuclear power in space for decades, fueling both caution and ambition in equal measure. In the shadow of these early experiments, the dream of lunar reactors smoldered quietly. During the Apollo era, NASA sketched plans for nuclear surface power systems, envisioning bases that would sprawl across the lunar plains, lit by the steady hum of reactors buried beneath regolith. But the cost, complexity, and changing tides of politics consigned these visions to the archives. Instead, the Apollo missions relied on smaller, radioisotope thermoelectric generators, RTGs, which provided heat and modest amounts of electricity using the decay of plutonium-238, enough to power scientific instruments left behind by Apollo 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17. These RTGs, silent and stoic, still linger on the moon, their plutonium hearts cooled to silence after decades of slow decay. The 21st century, however, brings new pressures and possibilities. The Artemis program, announced in 2017 and formally inaugurated in 2019, is more than a reprise of Apollo. Its ambition is permanence, a sustained human presence on the lunar surface, serving as a proving ground for technologies that will one day carry astronauts to Mars. Power, in this vision, is not a luxury, but a necessity. The demands are immense. Habitats must be heated and cooled, water extracted from lunar ice, oxygen generated, scientific experiments powered, and rovers dispatched across the regolith. The energy budget of a lunar base rivals that of a small terrestrial village. Solar power, for all its elegance, is hobbled by the moon's day-night cycle. At the lunar poles, sunlight grazes the horizon, offering near-continuous illumination, but demanding infrastructure perched on crater rims. Elsewhere, darkness reigns for up to 14 Earth days, a span that taxes even the most robust batteries. Fuel cells offer a temporary solution, but require regular resupply of hydrogen and oxygen, a logistical nightmare at the moon's distance. The allure of nuclear fission is its constancy. A reactor can provide unbroken power day and night, through storm and silence, for years on end. The technical journey from concept to reality is a study in precision and perseverance. Each reactor design must balance competing imperatives: mass, reliability, safety, and performance. The fuel, typically uranium-235, enriched to levels sufficient for sustained fission, must be compact enough to fit within the narrow confines of a lunar lander, yet robust enough to endure the rigors of launch. The reactor core is encased in ceramics and alloys chosen for their resistance to radiation, corrosion, and thermal expansion. Control rods, fashioned from neutron-absorbing materials like boron or hafnium, slide with micrometer precision to regulate the chain reaction. The entire assembly is sealed within layers of shielding: tungsten, boron carbide, and polyethylene, designed to contain both prompt radiation and the slow seep of neutrons. The challenge of heat rejection is uniquely daunting. On Earth, nuclear reactors cool themselves by circulating water or air. On the moon, there is no atmosphere, no rivers, no wind. Instead, heat must be radiated directly into space, through panels engineered to maximize surface area while minimizing mass. These radiators, often made from carbon composite or titanium alloys, are themselves marvels of materials science, capable of shedding hundreds of kilowatts of thermal energy without buckling in the lunar cold. Integration with the broader lunar infrastructure is equally complex. The power generated by the reactor must be distributed to habitats, laboratories, and vehicles scattered across the surface. Cables, exposed to the abrasive dust and wild temperature swings, must be armored and insulated beyond terrestrial standards. Backup systems, redundant controllers, emergency shutdown mechanisms are woven through the design, ensuring that a single fault does not spell catastrophe for the entire outpost. Safety, always the shadow companion of nuclear technology, takes on new dimensions in the lunar context. The launch of a nuclear reactor from Earth is a ballet of caution and contingency. Protocols dictate that the reactor remain in a subcritical state, unable to sustain a chain reaction, until it is safely landed on the moon. Only then, far from the biosphere, are the control rods withdrawn and the fission reaction begun. Should a launch failure occur, the reactor's containment is engineered to withstand explosion, fire, and ocean immersion, minimizing the risk of radioactive release. International law, too, weaves its skein through the project. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, signed by more than 100 nations, forbids the placement of weapons of mass destruction on the moon or in orbit, but is silent on peaceful uses of nuclear energy. The UN principles relevant to the use of nuclear power sources in outer space, adopted in 1992, provide guidelines for safety, liability, and environmental protection. Yet, as the United States moves forward, debates flare over transparency, dual-use technology, and the specter of military applications. The technical, political, and philosophical threads entwine most vividly in the laboratories and clean rooms where the reactor prototypes take shape. At Idaho National Laboratory, teams clad in anti-static suits assemble test modules, their hands deft and deliberate. Sensors bristle from every surface, feeding data to banks of computers that simulate a decade of lunar operation in mere months. Engineers subject materials to punishing cycles of heat and cold, bombarding them with neutrons and micrometeoroids to probe the limits of endurance. In a cavernous test bay, a prototype radiator unfurls, its panels gleaming like the wings of a mechanical moth. Technicians monitor the flow of heat through its veins, testing the radiative efficiency under vacuum conditions. Across the country, at Westinghouse's facilities in Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania, a scaled-down reactor core is subjected to neutron flux, its performance mapped in real time. The data, precise to the microsecond, is analyzed by teams of specialists, nuclear physicists, materials scientists, systems engineers, each attuned to the smallest anomaly. The human dimension is never far from the surface. In Houston, astronauts selected for Artemis missions train in simulators that mimic the lunar environment. They rehearse scenarios: a coolant leak at midnight, a dust storm that blankets the base, a sudden spike in radiation. The protocols are drilled to muscle memory, every action mapped to a decision tree that balances safety, mission objectives, and the inexorable constraints of time. Even as the hardware is perfected, the planners wrestle with logistical riddles. How to land a reactor, weighing several tons with millimeter precision on a surface pocked by craters and boulders. How to deploy it safely, robotically, in an environment where human intervention is costly or impossible. How to bury it in regolith, both to shield against radiation and to moderate temperature swings. Each question spawns a dozen more, each answer a careful compromise between risk and reward. The reactors themselves are more than machines. They are seeds planted in alien soil, designed to outlast the humans who set them in place. Their operation is monitored from Earth by teams who watch for the faintest signs of trouble: a drift in core temperature, a flicker in power output, a whisper of neutron flux. Autonomous systems, guided by artificial intelligence, stand ready to shut down the reactor or reroute power in the event of anomaly. The dance of control is unceasing, a silent conversation across the void. As the timeline advances toward 2029, the sense of urgency grows. Contracts are signed, milestones tracked, schedules compressed to fit the ceaseless cadence of budget cycles and political imperatives. The lunar South Pole, with its promise of water ice and near-continuous sunlight, is chosen as the initial site for deployment. Here, in the shadowed rims of Shackleton Crater, the first reactor will be lowered onto the regolith, its descent a ballet of thrusters, tethers, and sensor-guided algorithms. The implications of this act ripple outward, touching domains far beyond the technical. Power in the lunar context is not merely electricity, It is autonomy, survival, and sovereignty. The United States, by establishing nuclear infrastructure on the moon, stakes a claim not just to presence, but to permanence. The reactor becomes a beacon, signaling to allies and rivals alike that the frontier is open, that the resources of the moon, its water, its metals, its vantage over Earth, are within reach. Other nations watch, wary and ambitious. China, with its robust lunar program, has announced its own plans for surface nuclear power, collaborating with the China National Nuclear Corporation, CNNC, and the China Academy of Space Technology, CAST. Russia, heir to the Soviet legacy of nuclear spaceflight, eyes the possibility of lunar bases powered by compact reactors based on Topaz heritage. The European Space Agency, Japan and India explore solar and hybrid systems, hedging their bets as the geopolitical landscape shifts. The convergence of these ambitions reawakens old debates. Scientists and ethicists revisit the lessons of Chernobyl and Fukushima, weighing the risks of nuclear accidents against the promise of progress. Environmentalists warn of the dangers of radioactive contamination, both on Earth and the Moon. Strategists sketch scenarios in which reactors become targets, symbols of technological prowess and, perhaps, strategic vulnerability. Yet amid the swirl of controversy and anticipation, a quieter current flows, a sense of wonder, a recognition that the deployment of nuclear reactors on the Moon is more than a feat of engineering. It is a statement about humanity's relationship to power, both literal and metaphorical. For in the atom, we find a mirror of ourselves, immense potential, tightly bound, capable of creation and destruction in equal measure. There are echoes, too, of a deeper narrative, the perennial dance between light and dark. On the Moon, where night can last 14 days, the reactor's steady hum becomes a metaphor for resilience, for the refusal to yield to silence and cold. It is Prometheus, bringing fire to the gods' domain. It is the lantern against the cosmic abyss. The reactor's heartbeat, measured in megawatts, becomes an anchor for dreams. With reliable power, scientists can deploy instruments that probe the lunar interior, searching for clues to the Moon's formation and evolution. Rovers can roam farther, mapping deposits of water ice and rare earth metals. Habitats can grow, supporting not just astronauts but, in time, settlers, engineers, botanists, artists, each dreaming their own vision of lunar life. The lessons learned on the Moon are not confined to that distant sphere. The technologies refined in the crucible of lunar night, radiation shielding, autonomous control, advanced materials, find their way back to Earth, shaping the next generation of terrestrial reactors, microgrids, and disaster response systems. The Moon becomes a laboratory, not just for science but for civilization itself. There is poetry, too, in the juxtaposition of the ancient and the new. The Moon, silent witness to the birth of life on Earth, now plays host to the most modern artifact of human ingenuity. The regolith, worn by billions of years of meteorite impacts, cradles a core of uranium split by human hand. In that intersection, dust and atom, silence and song, lies the essence of exploration. Philosophers and storytellers have long grappled with the paradox of power. In Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the pursuit of knowledge leads to both creation and catastrophe. In Oppenheimer's Lament, the splitting of the atom brings both illumination and shadow. The lunar reactor, too, is a vessel of ambiguity, a source of hope and anxiety, possibility and peril. As launch day approaches, the sense of anticipation is electric. The reactor, sealed within its protective cask, is transported under armed guard to the Kennedy Space Center. Teams of specialists oversee every step, their faces etched with the awareness of history's gaze. The rocket, a gleaming column of alloy and circuitry, stands poised on the pad, its engines primed to hurl its precious cargo beyond the gravity well. In mission control, rows of monitors flicker with telemetry. The countdown, measured in heartbeats and microseconds, is a ritual both ancient and new. When the engines ignite, the air shudders with the thunder of combustion, the ancient alchemy of fuel and fire, propelling the future skyward. The journey to the Moon is a ballet of orbital mechanics and automated precision. The reactor module rides within a lander, guided by algorithms that sift through clouds of sensor data, correcting course with bursts of nitrogen. As the lander descends, radar and LiDAR map the landing site, seeking a patch of regolith flat enough to cradle the reactor's feet. The moment of touchdown is silent, no air to carry the sound. Yet in mission control, a collective breath is held, then released. Robotic arms, pre-programmed with 1,000 contingencies, deploy the reactor onto the surface. The shielding panels unfurl, the radiators blossom, and with a command issued from Earth, the control rods withdraw. In that moment, the first atoms split, and a trickle of electricity pulses through the cables. Sensors confirm the flow, watts climbing to kilowatts, circuits warming with the promise of unbroken light. For the astronauts who will follow, this act is both foundation and beacon. The base that will rise around the reactor is a testament to collaboration, a tapestry woven from the efforts of thousands, spanning continents and disciplines. The habitats, fashioned from inflatable composites and regolith bricks, cluster around the power core like petals around a sun. Water is extracted from ice, oxygen released in careful cycles, crops coaxed from lunar soil beneath LED arrays. The rhythms of lunar life, shaped by the reality of nuclear power, are both alien and familiar. Days are measured not by the rising and setting of the sun, but by the hum of generators and the cadence of maintenance cycles. The threat of radiation, both from space and from the reactor itself, demands vigilance. Dosimeters worn like amulets, protocols observed with priestly devotion. Yet, in this crucible, new forms of community emerge. Astronauts, engineers, and scientists share meals in the habitat's common module, their conversations ranging from the arcane to the mundane. They speak of home, of oceans and forests, of children and music, but also of the future they are building, atom by atom, on a world where every resource must be cherished and every mistake paid for in sweat and risk. The presence of nuclear power shapes not just the infrastructure, but the psychology of the base. There is a sense of security in the steady flow of electricity, a bulwark against the uncertainties of lunar night. But there is also a sense of responsibility, a recognition that the atom's fire is both gift and burden. Training is relentless, protocols unyielding, because the margin for error is razor thin. Beyond the base, the moon is transformed by the presence of enduring power. Science flourishes. Seismometers probe the deep crust. Spectrometers analyze the composition of distant hills. Radio telescopes eavesdrop on the origins of the universe from the radio-quiet far side. Mining robots, powered by the reactor's steady output, excavate regolith for metals and oxygen, their workings a symphony of progress and ambition. The path to Mars is mapped in the lessons learned here. The technologies that thrive on the moon, compact reactors, autonomous control systems, dust mitigation techniques, are refined and adapted for the longer, harsher journey to the red planet. The moon becomes a proving ground, a crucible in which the tools of interplanetary civilization are forged. The world watches, both awed and apprehensive. News outlets broadcast images of the reactor's deployment. Analysts debate the implications for geopolitics and environmental safety. Public opinion oscillates, admiration tinged with anxiety, pride shadowed by protest. Activists gather in city squares, their banners echoing the warnings of past disasters. Lawmakers convene hearings, questioning the wisdom of atom-powered exploration. Within the scientific community, debates rage over the best path forward. Some advocate for even more ambitious projects, multi-megawatt reactors capable of supporting industry, agriculture, and large-scale habitation. Others urge caution, emphasizing the risks of proliferation and contamination. The dual-use nature of nuclear technology, its potential for both peace and conflict, remains a central tension. The moon itself, indifferent to human dreams and fears, endures. Its surface, battered by eons of impacts, records the passage of time in layers of dust and stone. The reactor, a speck of order amid chaos, hums on, its output steady, its presence a marker of human intent. As years pass, the base grows. New modules are added, experiments expanded, crews rotated. The reactor, monitored and maintained, becomes a fixture, a silent guardian against the night. Its legacy is measured not just in kilowatt hours, but in the stories woven around its core. The first crops grown in lunar soil, the first children born on another world, the first artists to sculpt regolith into forms both strange and beautiful. In time, the lessons of lunar nuclear power ripple outward, shaping the future of energy on Earth. The reactors that power disaster relief zones, remote communities, and space stations owe their lineage to the prototypes tested in the vacuum of the moon. The challenges overcome, radiation, heat rejection, autonomous control, inform the next generation of terrestrial reactors, making them safer, more efficient, and more resilient. The moon, once a symbol of mystery and longing, becomes a workshop, a place where humanity's oldest fears and newest hopes are tested against the fabric of reality. The deployment of nuclear reactors is both an end and a beginning, a culmination of decades of research, and the foundation for a future in which the boundaries between Earth and sky are forever blurred. The philosophical implications are vast. The act of harnessing the atom on another world is a declaration of agency, a statement that humanity is not content to be shaped by circumstance, but seeks to shape its own destiny. It is a recognition that power in all its forms carries both risk and opportunity, a lesson as old as civilization itself. There is, too, a sense of humility. The moon, for all its proximity, remains a harsh and unforgiving world. The reactor's steady hum is a reminder of the fragility of life, the thin margin that separates survival from oblivion. Every watt of power, every breath of oxygen is hard-won, a product of ingenuity, discipline, and collective effort. The story, as it unfolds, is not one of triumph or tragedy, but of persistence. The deployment of nuclear reactors on the moon is a chapter in an ongoing narrative, a story of exploration, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of possibility. It is a testament to the capacity of human beings to imagine, to build, and to endure. As the decades pass and the footprints on the lunar surface multiply, the reactors will stand as silent witnesses to humanity's journey. Their legacy will be measured not just in the technologies they enable, but in the questions they provoke, about power, responsibility, and the nature of progress. In the end, the moon's silence is both canvas and echo. Against that backdrop, the steady pulse of nuclear power is a song of persistence, a declaration that even in the coldest night, the light of human curiosity endures. The atom, split and harnessed, becomes not just a source of energy but a beacon, a reminder that in the unending darkness, we carry our own fire. And so, the story continues, written in dust and light, in silence and song, as humanity reaches outward, one reactor, one heartbeat, one dream at a time.